Ooh. Hello, welcome back to another silly little video. I'm not trying to waste your time. Let's just get right into the concept. See, Yelan has this big funny multiplier. This is a pretty large hit, and on top of that, as a Hydra unit, she has access to the forward vape reaction, which at minimum doubles the damage of the hit. And while her element made her able to do something like this, it also somewhat held her back, because while the hit is nice, there aren't a lot of ways to buff it. Hydra units tend to be HP scaling now, and there are very few max HP buffs in the game. Most of them are hidden away in 5-star constellations. So buffing her max HP is out of the window. She does have access to the normal stats like Elemental Mastery, damage percent, crit, all those things. But again, buffers for those stats are rarer and tend to be weaker than... I mean, really, I'm talking about Bennett here. There's no crit Bennett. There kind of is a damage percent Bennett with Farina. She doesn't buff nearly as much. She's more focused on personal damage. You get my point. There aren't a lot of buffers. Really, the only consistent strong buff that she had access to was with VV. And while VV is strong and absolutely did help her damage, it's annoying because you would have to use some other source of hydro in her kit to apply it, get your swirl, remove the hydro somehow, and then get your pyro unit to apply pyro, and only then could you do your vaped res shredded hit. Even if that isn't too annoying, Vivi's duration is the same as her skill cooldown. So you would have to do this kind of scuffed little mini rotation every 10 seconds just to get one hit. And while I said this is a big hit, it's not really something that will carry your team's damage. So previously, Yelan's skill nuking was a lot of setup for a pretty meh reward. That was, of course, until Xilonen came along. Her kit brought along one of the only sources of res shred in the game that doesn't rely on reactions, and out of those types, it's easily the strongest. I mean, there is like Zhongli, but I mean, you're not bringing Zhongli to boost the damage of your team. All she requires is that 2 characters of the Petch elements, Pyro, Electro, Cryo, Hydro, be in your team, and then she will shred the resistance of whatever element those characters are. And I mean, she also does Geo, but that's not important to this video. So Xilonen comes along and gives Yelan a source of res shred that applies unconditionally, which allowed me to make this team. It's essentially a normal lyney team where I've used Xilonen to staple skill nuke Yelan to the back half. Just to give you an idea of how it plays, essentially, lyney's just here, doing his normal stuff, doing his lyney things, whatever, and then... What was that? Wait, did you see that? Wait, what's going on? What? Where'd she come from? That was a suboptimal rotation just for the point of the joke, but let me show you the real one. I also mentioned that VV only has a 10-second duration. Xilonen, with her 15-second duration, allows Yelan to get a vape at both the beginning of the rotation and at the end. It's certainly not an optimal team, but it's fun to play, and it's very, very silly. So let me go over why I've chosen lyney here. The basic idea here is that I want to have a functional team of 2 units plus Xilonen that applies enough pyro for Yelan to occasionally jump in and get vapes off of. And lyney is basically the perfect unit for that. This passive increases the damage that he deals to opponents that are affected by pyro. So he's a pyro DPS that applies a lot of pyro himself and gets damage from opponents being affected by pyro. Which, if you think about it, that's also what Yelan is doing. I have 2 characters who get a lot of their damage from having pyro auras on enemies. The only difference is that one of them is applying pyro and the other is consuming it. So lyney is able to just play as he normally would, applying pyro, getting damage from that applied pyro, and then Yelan is able to sneak in, do her little 100k jump scare, and then leave lyney to continue doing his on-field thing. It also helps that lyney is a charge shot character who is free to swap between his teammates. He doesn't enter any sort of state that is lost when he goes off field. So it's goofy, it's funky, it's wacky, but it's also a surprisingly clean synergy. However, I do recognize that lyney isn't the most popular unit, so I do have some alternatives prepared. But before I get onto them, I want to do a little gear check on Yelan. Weapon is stringless, gets a fat damage % buff from the passive, and that EM substat is pretty juicy. I do have her signature. It probably would be better, but I'm already using it on lyney. Stringless is also much more free-to-play friendly, so we'll just say I am purposefully tuning down my Yelan's damage. Artifacts are Golden Troop, which contributes a lot to the Jumpscare identity. It's a lot of skill damage bonus, but some of that bonus will be cleared if you're on field for more than 2 seconds. So you jump on field, you do your tap skill, you jump out. Because I'm getting so much damage % from both the weapon and the artifact set, I've gone with HP Goblet as well as the HP Sands. Other than that, it's just, you know, crit, HP, EM, not very complicated. Neither Arlecchino nor Malwika get that special damage bonus from pyro applied enemies like lyney does, but they're both still very, very strong. They don't really need perfect synergies. They can kind of just hit stuff and their numbers can do a lot of the work. Malwika is one of those characters who she enters a state that will be cancelled when she leaves the field. She's not as quick swap friendly as lyney. However, Arlecchino isn't one of those characters. Her infusion, based on her bond of life, doesn't even last a specific amount of time. She can swap all she wants. And while Arlecchino and Malwika are strong enough to just kind of mash through things without much synergy, you are technically able to do this with the rest of the Pyrocast. I mean, like, you know, play Hu Tao in this slot if you want to, but she's not going to have the synergy that lyney does or the raw power that Malwika or Arle do. However, there are 2 more characters that get damage from having pyro auras on enemies and sort of apply pyro. Those being the burning units of Kinich and Emily. Again, not the most popular units, but they can be made to function, albeit a little worse in this slot. The first big thing is that they don't benefit from Xilonen as much as a pyro carry would, and therefore she's kind of only buffing Yelan. And also, there's not a great slot in this team for a Deepwood holder, so they're kind of just left to hold it themselves, which can be a somewhat sizable nerf to their damage. Wow, he does a lot of damage. Who would have known? Kinich do big number. He's a little less flexible, a little harder to play. He's not directly doing pyro application, so there are less opportunities for Yelan to get vapes. That's why I greatly prefer Emily over Kinich, with the caveat that this does feel much, much better with Bennett C6. Not required, but Yelan really appreciates it. With C6 Bennett, Emily's normals can do a lot of pyro application, lets you not be so finicky with your rotations, lets you get some better chances for vapes. And you know what? Since I'm not using lyney in this one, I'll give the people what they want. Let's use Aqua and look at the big funny number. I can also definitely swap to an EM timepiece in that case. And I'm gonna grab this flower to balance my crit ratio. I don't think, yeah, still a little scuffed. All of her damage coming from one big hit really makes me biased towards higher crit rates. And if I could, I would do better than this. I would recommend somewhere even around like 85 to 90 range. Because when you're only hitting once every 10 seconds, you really feel when you miss the crit. Let's just do a setup that'll get max own damage. Okay, I mean, it's still nothing crazy because this is a team that's meant to essentially function on its own and have an occasional Yelan nuke. So you're not gonna see like 300,000. But a consistent 150k is still pretty impressive. And while the burning variations of this team do function, as you can see, I think the pyro carry versions, and of course the lyney version in particular, work the best. It's also just so funny to be playing a normal lyney team and then just see, what was that? So yeah, there you have it. Jumpscare Yelan. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, you can like and subscribe to show me. But of course, watching alone is more than enough. Got a few videos in the pipeline, so stay tuned. I'll see you in the next one, and I hope you all have a lovely day.